Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Live here from Aruba. I'm vacationing. And first of all, welcome to Bank on Women each and every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the She Is Still Dope Network. So I wanted to go over a couple of things. Today, we're going to get in deep. We're talking about how credit reporting agencies, CRAs, get your information and things you should avoid and things you should clean up, because a lot of people don't know how these people get your information. It's important that we control kind of what they see, and that it's also that we do our due diligence as business owners to make sure that everything matches and things of that nature. So again, Sarah here on the She Is Still Dope Network. If you haven't already heard, the boss lady herself and our commander-in-chief God has spoken. Right now, the She Is Still Dope Network is doing free membership, so you can join for free. It's a subscription-based network of all kinds of women from all kinds of backgrounds, and literally, this is a dope community to be part of. We have groups everywhere internationally, and there's so much cool information that we share across our board. I know I do Financial Fridays, but there are, like, during the week, when I say there are a list of women that are professionals and women of God, like every subject area that you can think about, we talk about and we get in deep about. We always come from our own personal perspectives. We come from all different backgrounds, no perfect people allowed, and we'd love for you to join us. So we're going to drop the link before the sheisstilldope.com/membership, and it's free right now. So please, this is not going to be up for long. Normally there is a small fee to join, but sow into your life and definitely join our network. We talk about all kind of subject areas, and you can really, really gain knowledge and network. So if you haven't already visited sheisstilldope.com, please do so. I'm on each and every Friday, Bank on Women, with the She Is Still Dope Network. And right now, membership is free. So please join our community, okay? So I'm going to get into a couple of things, but I definitely wanted to address how creditors get our information and essentially what they see when they see our information. So there is basically a consumer finance department that is part of the government, and most people know that they kind of control the list of consumer reporting agencies. These agencies essentially are licensed to collect information, and what they do is they kind of sell that information to Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, among several other reporting companies that focus on creating a report about you and your business personally. So most people, what they don't know is that when we are essentially applying for something, when we are going to do something business-wise, as far as a legal transaction, purchasing a home, a car, getting a line of credit, businesses, lenders, the industry utilizes this information that is collected from these data reporting agencies to, one, verify that it's you, two, see if you're credible, and three, to kind of judge you on how you've been handling your business. Some of these data reporting or credit reporting agencies, they have collected information on you since you were a child. So a lot of the things that you have on there kind of become alarming. And it's super, super, I mean, to me, it was super funny. Like when I pulled my LexisNexis report for the first time 10 years ago, because I had, I'm Puerto Rican, so I had butter pecan rican at gmail.com. Like when I say, I'm like, oh my God, that was like my first email. So, I mean, literally everything that you can think about, down to some of your medical information, every address that you've ever lived at, every phone number that you've ever had. If you've done an application of some sort in your lifetime, they essentially are paid to collect and keep that information. Now, why am I having this conversation with you today? I'm having this conversation with you because a lot of us have the right to suppress those reports so that when a creditor or a lender goes to pull those reports, they're not available, because that's private information, right? But you don't know to do that unless you know your rights. So for me, it's important that we share exactly what they report, and for you to know your rights, because depending on what you're applying for, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's in your personal or business name, it's important that you know that, you know, they are just paying someone else to gather that information for them, and based on that information, they can make a decision on whether they're going to approve you or not. So lock in. As I always tell you, get your pen and paper out, and I want you to know your rights. Before we leave here today, I'm also going to give you some links, and these links are going to be links to specific credit reporting agencies, because it's not just Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion that collect this information, but there's upward to 16 bureaus that we're going to educate you today on what they report and how you can suppress those reports, okay? And by suppress, I essentially mean you have the right to lock those reports where no one can pull them without your permission, all right? So that when you go to apply for something, you're not judged based on things that, one, probably aren't true, or two, they literally, it's part of your past, and they're going to judge you based on that. So 2 or 3 things that I want you to take from here today is, 1, knowing your rights, knowing where this data is coming from, and 3, the right to pull your reports, because all of them, you have the right to essentially request a copy of that report so that you're in the knowing of what information is being reported when people pull that report or those reports. All right, so let's get into it. So Where CRAs, which is literally a small short name for credit reporting agencies, get your data. So as far as business credit is concerned, business credit is obtained in the business's name. It's independent to the owner's credit history and scores. Business credit reporting agencies, they rely on objective data to calculate their scores. So it's not like there's a specific, hey, if you got 12 accounts reporting, this is going to be your score. No, and by objective, I mean they use analytic software to essentially obtain and move your score up and down. So literally this objective data, and by data, I mean what is reported and what they collect from all of these credit or data reporting agencies, that's what they use to calculate your score. Objective and useful business data comes from a variety of sources, like I told you, and these sources, they vary depending on what you are applying for. Your business credit profile is independent from your consumer credit profile, and in a week or two, I'm gonna be bringing in credit guru that is going to give us some tips on the personal credit side. But right now, when it comes to business credit, right, and I've shared this several times throughout my other shows, when they pull your business credit, although you're not personally guaranteeing an account most times, they still look at your personal. So these decisions rely on somewhat different data, but it all points to risk. So what is the risk of your company defaulting on its payments? So if anyone has ever pulled an Equifax business credit report, there's a risk score up there. Even when you dig in deep to any type of business credit report, they all calculate their score based on your company being a risk. So keep that in mind. Now, all of the credit reporting agencies, they all have the same mission, whether it's to see if your business can pay your bills on time, or whether to see the difference in details, right? Because if over here, one credit reporting agency has that you're at this address and this is a residential address, and then the other two have that you're at a brick and mortar, one has a 1-800 number, one has a residential line. In their eyes, that's seen as a risk, and it's seen as basically you not having your business in order. So they take points off, or they put a red flag. That's a red flag to them that you are, one, not operating like a true business, two, that your business affairs aren't in order, and three, that most likely you'll become a risk in the future. So it's important, and I preach this all the time, that all of your information matters, and you don't essentially know that until you actually pull those reports. Some CRAs weigh public records more heavily. So if you have a business collection, or if you have a personal collection, or if you have a judgment against you, they essentially rely on all of this data that is collected from different agencies. And then others, they may weigh on payment history more heavily. So if you missed a payment or two, or others may look at your DTI, your debt to income ratio. How much does she spend in a month and pay back? How much debt does she have? So it's important that you are essentially, keeping in mind that you are being judged whether you like it or not. Public records. So credit reporting agencies want your business experience in the public sphere, right? They want to essentially tell your business, whether it's a bankruptcy, whether it's a lien, whether it's a judgment. They're going to highlight that when they pull that information. And some lenders will automatically disqualify you from lending or a line of credit if you have any derogatory accounts or if you have any judgments. So when it comes to public records, this includes bankruptcies, liens, judgments. I've even seen like if someone has a civil matter, they literally, anything related to something that has been filed in court. This information normally comes from court documents, and in the US, PACER provides information on federal court cases. So as I stated before that I was going to give you links. So the first link is www.pacer.gov/. So if I were you, I would go and request my PACER report, right? So if you have anything on there that needs to be disputed, you can dispute it. So keep that in mind. You can also find public record information at BRBPUB. Again, when someone pulls that information or it pops up on your credit report, this is where it's coming from. So if you have a bankruptcy that you want to suppress, or a lien or a judgment, something private, you can always lock those reports. But before you do that, you want to make sure that you pull those reports so that you can essentially say, hey, this belongs to me or this doesn't belong to me. By law, certain things are able to drop off after a certain time, but you're still reporting it. Or if you don't want anyone to know at all, you have the right to do that. So in general, this tax lien filings are, they aren't connected to courts, but sometimes if the IRS has a judgment on your public record, it will show in PACER or BPB, PUB. So keep in mind that it all depends on the type of case, but normally it is bankruptcies, liens, judgments, and anything related to civil matters that someone has filed a public case on you for. Credit agencies, again, they are looking for filing dates, whether the bankruptcy has been resolved or not, closing dates, and the basic on court cases. And the date is what's most important. Keep in mind that every state has a statute of limitations, so most people don't know that. We talked about the IRS information. In general, this is tax lien filings. They aren't connected to the courts. Instead, they have a filing location like at the county or the state that you're in. The IRS also has information on whether your company is a sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation. So if you filed your initial filing as, like, you went and got an EIN and you started off as a sole proprietorship, but then later on went to the state and became an LLC and you haven't updated that information with the IRS, it's going to be a red flag to anyone. So keep in mind that annually you should be looking at your filings. The state and county normally has fees related to those, and you want to make sure that your company is in good standing and that all your information matches. So those are things that you want to revisit on a regular basis. In the end, this gives information on the makeup of your company. So it's important that you keep that filing up to date because they collect all of that. Voluntary reporting by creditors. What does voluntary mean, right? Voluntary means essentially that you gave them that information without them asking. Credit reporting agencies like Experian strongly suggest companies report to them. And you can go on to Experian Business, their website, and create a profile. Now, if your profile is incorrect, you can make changes to them in the form of a request, but you voluntarily gave them that information. They suggest creditors report because if borrowers know a company's report, those borrowers might pay them faster to maintain a better score. It means rewarding good credit to conscientious borrowers who pay back on time. So the more information that they report on you, they feel that it'll better your chances. But that can have a totally opposite effect if you have negative information on your report. And just like a regular personal credit report, you can dispute this information, but make sure that if you dispute your information, that you dispute it across all agencies, because it's very likely, again, that if you update it with one agency and you don't update it with all agencies, that they can pull that information again and it could pop up on your report again. So I've had some people say, hey, Ms. Sarah, I disputed this a month or two ago and it popped back on there. Yeah, but did you go to the root of the problem, right? And did you give them supporting documentation across all three reports? So keep that in mind. Reporting alerts is something that I always keep on my reports. I actually suggest, I know most people have nav.com to pull their business reports, but keep in mind that nav is also a reporting agency, and they're just going to report. They're going to give you your scores, but they're not going to give you your scores unless you pay for them. So I do a business builder package, which is essentially, I pay them quarterly, and they essentially, one, they're a reporting trade line, so they can, and they report to all 3 bureaus, but 2, they allow you to have up to 3 businesses and get 3 business credit scores. Now, it's not a full report. So if you want a full report, you're going to have to actually go to Experian Business, Equifax Business, and Dun & Bradstreet. But it is a report, and they have alerts on there. So if somebody applies for something in your business name, or if there is a change, or if you forgot to pay a bill, you will get an alert immediately. So I definitely suggest that people do that. Self-reporting by borrowers, okay? Every time you fill out a credit application for your business, you are providing data for your credit reporting agencies. And I shared that earlier when we first started the show. This includes your industry classification. This includes the amount of time of business and the number of employees. So keep in mind that when you apply for things, you should be utilizing the same information. It should all, essentially, your industry code and classification should be the same. Your amount of time in business should, align with when you were open, and then the number of employees matter. Self-reporting for borrowers, is important on the credit side, because the first time you self-report is when you apply for a DUNS number. So I always talk about this. DUNS are free. DUNS numbers are free. And, the DUNS classification system is essentially used when you're doing business with the government, like contracting. But you provide this information initially when you apply. So you provide your company's physical location, whether your company has a DBA. And a DBA is just what you're doing business as, and that is a filing. So most people who, our office through a lawyer applies for an entity like an LLC or a corporation or even a partnership, we make sure that, they have an actual entity and then they do business as their brand or whatever they're doing. So that should be mentioned. Headquarters, if any, like I have 3 different locations, but I have a headquartered location. That's essentially my brick and mortar, my office, my physical location. But because of redlining, I do business in other places. And there are reasonings behind that on the contractual and the grant side that I do it. So Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet creates a DNB rating, and this rating contains a financial strength indicator. It is calculated using either your net worth or the issued capital of a company. So if both figures are available, then your net worth is usually used. DNB will show if a business is new or if they never got this information. They can also tell whether you're a dormant business and you haven't done anything. They can tell, there are so many things that DNB analytically pulls in and can red flag you about. But the financial strength indicator essentially drives how much they should lend to you. And when I say they, I mean that lender, that banking institution, that creditor. And that's if they pull DNB, because some people use Equifax. Some people specifically use Experian Business. So it all depends on what they're using. But if they're using Dun & Bradstreet, this is going to drive essentially, and some people use credit safe reports, but on your credit safe report, if you ever pull it, because they work together with DNB, it will tell you basically based on the financial strength indicator score that you have, how much the recommended lending amount is. So keep that in mind. It also contains a condition code or a risk indicator. This measures the amount of risk that the creditor can expect by taking into account key items that are on your Dun & Bradstreet business information report, which are used to predict the likelihood that your business is going to either fail or survive. So keep that all in mind, and most people don't know that. A company that gets the lowest rating, which is a 5, has no information provided. So that's why it's so important that you drive this by going to that site, applying for a DUNS number, and providing them that information. And then keeping in mind that if you provide them that information, that you essentially have to make sure you keep it up to date if anything changes. Credit reporting agencies receive payment data and other company details from lenders, suppliers, and creditors where your company have accounts. This is from vendors which report. So there are some vendors that don't report. Keep in mind that if a vendor reports, it's likely that you are spending their requirements behind how much you have to spend for them to report, because there's a cost to them to report. It's also, I've seen so many people, and I mean, people who do business credit like with me, like Tarika, my other counterparts that teach business credit will tell you, like, if it doesn't report, please don't take that vendor account. We are not looking, I mean, most people do Amazon, that doesn't report. So why are you utilizing it? Like, you build your business credit profile by obtaining vendor reports or credit from vendors that actually report. So vendor data is important because it drives so much. And again, they share that information, and that's what essentially is going to drive popping your scores, or keeping your scores up. So keep that in mind. Even vendors that don't report still can provide you data. So I had a client that I had to clean up their report, and what happened was they essentially went through a really hard time during COVID, and 3 or 4 of their vendors, they weren't unable to pay. Essentially, we were through a dispute, we were able to update that information and take it off because of COVID related purposes. But she was like, I'm not worried about it because these vendors don't report. The minute she missed the payment, guess what? It was on her personal and her business report. So they might not pay to report if you're doing good, but they will report if you have a negative filing or if you miss a payment or two. And they'll report to your personal and to your business. So keep that in mind. Even vendors, like I mentioned before, that do not report will report. But you can also utilize these vendors that don't report as a trade reference. So in some business credit applications, you might see that they'll ask for 3 trade references. And that essentially means a trade reference is someone that you've done business with. So if you've purchased from them on a regular basis, like, you can give that information and they'll call them and essentially say, hey, how is this person, as far as credit is concerned? Are they a credible business? Do you think that I should rent to them? So keep that in mind. And a trade reference is subjective. The other information is all objective. UCC filings. So if your business got approval for financing that you pledge collateral to secure funding, then guess what? On your business report, you will have a UCC filing, and that is usually filed by the lender with a financial statement, and it's also filed with your state, the Secretary of State that you live in. So keep that in mind. This essentially creates a lien against your assets or asset. Credit reporting agencies collect this public information and they add it to your company's profile. So I have seen people who, for instance, if you got any type of EIDL from the SBA or PPP, there is UCC filing against your thing. Not essentially with PPP. unless they take you into collections. But initially, if you got any type of SBA regular loan, like an EIDL or a 7A or a 7B loan, then they automatically file a UCC filing against you. And you probably have noticed it. And that's probably why they pulled your credit, because there are credit requirements when you initially apply. So that means that they look to make sure there's a requirement that you essentially have a decent credit score, and they put a filing on there until you pay them off. Collection filings. If your business has any collection filings, the listing includes date, collection agency name, status, amount disputed and collected, and the close date, if applicable. And literally that information is reported across, so keep that in mind. When you have collection filings, it's important that you understand that you can dispute those, and it's up to that business credit reporting agencies to take things into consideration, but you have to show them some type of proof that that burden isn't yours. And oftentimes it's harder to file a dispute against a collection filing than it is to do on a personal credit reporting agency, because unlike personal credit reports, who have a whole bunch of laws in place to protect consumers, there aren't as many to protect businesses. Although most creditors and lenders are super, they'll work with you, but it's harder to get it off. The federal government. So credit reporting agencies collect reported federal government data. This includes grants, loans, contracts, debarments. So what does that mean? That means that if you got any type of SBA loan, that's public information. If your company won a grant from the federal government, that is also public information. So keep that in mind. Debarments is an exclusion from certain items such as contracts due to transgressions like fraud. So if you lied on your grant application, or you want a contract and we're not able to fulfill that government contract, they blacklist you and put you on a list, and all of that information is reported on the federal side. The media. So credit reporting agencies gather information from these sources. Jesus, get it together, Sarah. So credit reporting agencies gather information from these sources. That's why it's so important for you to have a website. Make sure that your Google listing is right. There are essentially a list of places that you should be listed in, like 411. They want to make sure that you're credible. So this information includes communication platforms such as press releases, news stories, sources that can be online or offline. When I say they are nosy, they are super nosy. So just keep that in mind. Directories. There are a number of directories of companies are another source of information. Like I mentioned before, 411, Yellow Pages, directories that are online, offline, Yelp. All of those things are looked at when making a decision. So keep that in mind. So, and when we talk about directories, there are a list of places that you essentially, about 21 places that you should be listed on. But what I want to emphasize is keeping up with those listings. Like, you should have a notebook that tells you the platform that you listed yourself, or the directory, the information that you use, and you should be visiting those on a yearly basis to make sure that they are up to date with your latest information and that everything is matching. Business registrations. When you register your business with the state, they provide details as far as your company's incorporation, the date, and the current status of your filing. This is public information in every state. So my recommendation, and I always say this, is that you have that information up to date and that you're in good standing. We talked about business bank rating and last week, and how they pull that information to make sure that you are indeed in good standing with the state. Like, I can't tell you the countless amount of people who come and say, hey, Miss Sarah, I need a business loan. And the first thing I do is go to the state that they're in, their business entity website, and make sure that they're in good standing. Because oftentimes what we get is a whole bunch of people who want to file for something and they are not even licensed or in good standing with the state. So keep in mind that those are things that you should also be visiting on a yearly basis to make sure that your information matches and to make sure that you are in good standing with the state. Business registrations. These can be listed in courts at the following levels: state, city, and county. So keep that in mind. Incorporation filings. If applicable, this type of business, essentially, the file goes on public record with the state's corporation division. Other information that you can add to that is corporate financial reports and shareholder specifics. So I know on mine, I kind of suppress my financials because I don't want them to be nosy, but I do have shareholder specifics. Basically, how many shares I have in my company, who the CEO, the president is, who my registered agent is that can do business on my behalf. I even have down to my business lawyer on there. So those are things that you can essentially list on your incorporation filings. Web mining. Being nosy to another level, right? You've ever heard your mother say, be careful what you post on the internet because it follows you forever. That is so true. Credit reporting agencies, they will look for your company's information online. This includes Google, your company website, your present, like on Facebook, Yelp. All of those things are looked at. So keep that in mind. If you have your own website that allows you to direct some form of narrative, it's best that your company can put its best online foot forward. So that basically means that you want to control or have limited information, even if it's a one-pager landing page on what it is that your company does. Your address should be on there, a contact form, but you want to have the basics at least, because they are going to be looking. If your company website is incomplete or does not exist at all, then credit reporting agencies will fill the gaps with the information they get from everywhere else. So if you control what they see and what information they get, they can't fill in the gaps themselves because that leaves room for error. So keep in mind that that information that they get themselves might not be favorable to your business credit report. So the only way to change that is to make sure that every platform has the same information. Okay, recap real quick, because I know we went over a whole lot of information. Right? Credit reporting agencies, they work with objective information. That means they automatically are going to look for the negative. They don't care about your story. So keep in mind that if you control that objective information, then you are beating them to the punch and you already know what's going to come back when they go to pull that information. Keep in mind that it is readily traceable to government records or court records or other organizations. The only subjective information is trade references because they essentially are based on what you're actually doing. Everything else is literally they control. So if you haven't already joined my Facebook group, Biz Credit Builds, please do so. I know we went over a lot of information really quickly. I want to go through some of the consumer reporting agencies that people don't know about. Also, if you haven't joined the She Is Still Dope Network, please do so. Right now, membership is free. Please take advantage of that. But really quickly, I just wanted to go through some of the, and this list is available on the consumerfinance.org page. And it literally, it's a list of consumer reporting agencies. And I'm not talking about, just a second. I'll put it in the chat really quickly. But I'm not talking about, I'm literally not talking, he put it up for me. So, and I'm not talking about private and business. I'm talking about all together. These are the places or the things that they collect or have the right to collect via the federal government for. So literally for gaming, for employment screening, they pull stuff from universal background screenings. For gaming, NCC. For gaming and credit, Central Credit, tenant screenings, background checks, pre-employment, insurance. So some people, I have a friend of mine who got listed as an at-fault accident when she went through arbitration and they found her not guilty. So she had to essentially pull her insurance information report and essentially give them a copy of that filing, and then they took it off. But every agency that is collecting information is on here. And it's super important that you know what's on these reports and that you are essentially asking them to either suppress, well, first of all, ask for a copy of the report. And then you can always ask them to suppress those reports, or essentially, if you see something on there that's incorrect, and I'm pretty sure that you will, then you can dispute it. And they tell you exactly how to dispute it. But there is a database for everything. And if you don't know that, then they are going to put their own story together. So keep in mind the importance of keeping all of these reports either suppressed or accurate, because when you go to pull that information, it will give you up-to-date and real information versus them putting that story together themselves. I know, again, that we shared a whole lot, and most people don't even know that they put the story together themselves. But it is important that we are doing our due diligence to control the subjective information that they see versus the objective information that they put together themselves. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Tamala, it was nice to see you on here. Yeah, this information is super, 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 you'd be surprised what's on there. But as always, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go back to enjoying my birthday kickoff here in Aruba. But it is always a pleasure. And thanks again. Tune in next week, Bank on Women, hosted by me, Sarah Sabastro, CEO of Biz Credit Builds. If you haven't already done so, go join my group. And again, thank you for tuning in. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So my birthday is not until the 12th, but God is good. We're starting early. But no, the weather here is beautiful. And again, I appreciate all the love that you guys give me and the support. And again, I'll see you next week. Keep in mind that we are also, next week, I'm going to have a special guest, Dana Blue, my corporate lawyer. Yes, Michelle, catch the replay. But I'm going to be talking about contracts and how you should essentially be setting up these contracts in place, even when you're discussing your business idea with anyone, right? You should also have them sign an NDA. So we're going to go through a list of contracts that you should, every business should have in place. And then we're also going to be talking about trademarking, because she's a trademark attorney also. So please tune in. It's probably going to be a 2-part session, but I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Have a good Friday.